Well, today we have a ZX10, an 05 ZX10 that we bought at the auction at the Copart, and give you a quick walk around of it. So, has a little bit of damage. Most of it to the right side. As you can see, the rash here. Fairing's in pretty beat up shape. I don't know if you can see, but the case has damage. So I'm kind of curious on that. Doesn't look like it's the engine case per se. And maybe it's just the cover, but we'll see. A little bit of rash back here, a little on the exhaust pipe, missing the foot peg. Kind of busted up there. This bike's pretty beat up. It's been pieced together. It has 51,000 miles on it, which that's a lot. It's also, as you can hear, no fuel pump, no start. It was listed as a runs and drives, and so something happened at the auction, and I'm not quite sure what it was. So we'll go through and see if we can't figure out what it was. Let's get started. Okay guys, we got this in on here on the stand. Like I was saying before, there's no fuel pump coming on. So in my opinion, there's two things wrong with it. Could be this kickstand switch, which we'll check that out, or it could be under the seat, under the battery, is the tip over switch. Normally they reset themselves, but maybe this one didn't reset itself, so we'll give it a quick check and see. Let's dive into it. Okay, so that's the tip over sensor, or bank angle sensor. I'm going to try and pull that out and shake it and see if it makes a difference. So to do that, I'm going to pull the tank, not completely, but I'm just going to pull it off to the side, I think, if I can. So I'm going to pull the side panels, these off, and pull front two belts, pull this pole, and hopefully I can just pop it out of the way. So we pulled this bracket out. You can see the up sensor. There's just a little pendulum in there. Hear it rattling around. That's I'm guessing that makes it okay. If you can't hear it rattle around, then you got problems. It's stuck. So this isn't turning the pump on. When you turn the key on, key's on, nothing. So I don't think it's that. I think the next thing to look at is the kickstand sensor. Okay, one thing, so I pulled one off the shelf that I had from a 2013. It's the same plug-in. Still nothing. Now I think I have a switch off the shelf that I can try here. So one thing that happens is when you put it in gear and pull the clutch, nothing. So it should, with the kickstand up in gear with the clutch in, it should still turn over. It's not. So I'm wondering, maybe this kickstand switch. So Looks like the wires go in here, so I'm going to pull this side fairing off and see what I see. Well, I had this other Kawasaki kickstand laying around, so I plugged it in. Still no fuel pump. I think that's as much as I really want to deal with this. I think I'm going to start tearing it down. I think I'm going to pull the tank and maybe I'll mess with the kill switch. That could be a possibility. That's the only other thing I can think of. Maybe I'll give that a one last ditch effort. Take it apart and see what I see. Well, I just changed the switch to one that I know that works. Instead of tearing that one apart, I have one on the shelf, and still nothing. I don't know what's going on. Something strange. I'll keep digging. Well, I'm going to pull the gas tank. Look at that gas. That looks really bad. That is some bad looking gas. So I don't even know if it would have ran very good. At least it's pretty dark colored. Shouldn't be that dark. Well, we'll pull the tank, see what we see. Well, we just tested the fuel pump. You touch the positive wire to this yellow wire, it pumps gas out. So we know the pump's good. I don't know why it's not telling the pump to turn on. Not sure. Keep digging. Well guys, got the air box off and I'm truly stumped. I really truly don't know what's wrong with it. But I can say this bike is so filthy. They must have just, like, it did come from LA with 51,000 miles, so maybe they rode the crap out of it through the desert. But I'm going to pull the tail fairing and I'm going to take it outside and wash it real quick. Spray some chemicals on it. So it looks like you just take 1, 2, 3, 4, and this tail fairing pops off. Well, we know the fuel pump works. I'm giving up on trying to make it run, so I'm going to start tearing it down. I'm going to pull the fuel pump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts pulls the fuel pump. I'll pull the gas cap. So you open it, and there's 1, 2, 3 screws, and the cap comes off. Okay, next I want to do a compression check, so I'm going to pull the throttle bodies. I'll pull the spark plugs. So what you got to do is you got to pull all the plugs off, and the injector plugs might be easier once you pop it off. But we're going to pull the throttle body, and to access it there's a little hole on each side that you loosen the clamps and then just pry the throttle bodies out. Well, these coils aren't coming out easy. See, they hit there and there. So I'm going to back off, pull the front end. But so that means you got to pull this brace and pull this bracket off on each side. So I think what I'll do is I'm gonna start taking the front end apart, and then once the radiator's out of the way, I'll go after that bracket. So we'll pull the mirrors and the windscreen and pull this front end apart. So I'm trying to take the nose fairing off, or at least this upper piece. I got this one off, this one out. Looks like there's one in there and one there. Take those out, and I think this upper piece will come off. Okay, got those off. Now I'm going to go after the front headlight air ram assembly. take 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts out. Then the whole gauge cluster and everything will come off. Unplug as many things as you can beforehand. Alright, next I'm going to take the front fender off and put it on a front stand. So you got 1, 2 bolts there, 2 bolts there. The front fender pops off. So next I'm going to suck the fluid out of the front brake calipers. I use this little Harbor Freight thing here. They're like 20 or 30 bucks. Works great. But look at this fluid. That is way too dark. Nasty. Can cause lots of problems if you let your fluid get that bad. Alright, we had problems with the bleeder screw. It was plugged. So now I'm going to take calipers off, take these 2 bolts, and pull the brake hose bolt off. Next, we're going to take the front wheel off. I'm going to loosen these 2, and then loosen this nut, and loosen these 2. Maybe that's an insert. Maybe these need to be tight. Loosen these 2, and then the axle slides out. Alright, front wheel's off. Now we're going to go after the fork tubes. So we'll start by pulling the right handlebar. Loosen this clutch cable. Take the clutch cable off. Cut the grip off. And take the left control off. There's a screw there and a screw down here. Okay, next we'll pull this handlebar off. So we're going to take the front, we're going to undo the hose, bolt that holds the hoses on. There's 2 screws under here for your right control. These 2 and that, and everything comes off. Okay, so we're going to take the top triple clamp off. You got loosen these, then loosen your bar. Sometimes there's supposed to be a bolt that holds it up in there. Same thing on this side. Loosen that, and loosen that. And there's supposed to be a bolt, but someone didn't bolt this one. And then the top just slides right off. Now the fork tubes are easy. Once all this is out of the way, just 2 bolts there, 2 bolts there, and the tubes just slide right out. Next, we're going to pull the radiator. So I need to drain the coolant. We're going to pull the drain plug right there for the coolant. And then undo the hoses. You've got 2 bolts. One down here. This is just a pin. One right here. Then undo your hoses and the radiator pops out. So now, to get the coil out, I'm going to pull this bracket and this upper bracket. So there's a bolt there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And same on the other side. Okay, pulled the plugs, installed the compression checker, pull my rags, and I'm going to turn it over. Little trick, just jump it right here and it'll spin the engine over. So we'll see. This thing has 151,000 miles. I'm wondering what kind of compression it has. We'll see. Look at that. 160 pounds of pressure. That is crazy. Crazy, crazy. I'll check the rest. Well, I'm going to pull this side cover off and see if there's any damage to the engine case. So I'm going to drain the oil and pull the bolts and we'll see what we see. Alright, we're going to work on taking the subframe apart. So I'm going to start with taking the battery out. Pretty simple. Unbolt, unbolt and pop the strap off. Next, I'm going to take the passenger seat latch off, pull these two screws, and it pops off. Alright, next we're going to go after the ECU. It's pretty simple. Just pops right out of these deals. Pull it up and then slide it out and unplug it. So now I like to want to pull the whole harness out and fold it in there. So I'm going to undo the turn signals and pull all the harness out here and then through here and then up in there. Okay, we're going to go after the starter solenoid. So you pull these two screws, it slides right out, but I want the little rubber piece too, so pull this out, pop this clip off, and it'll come out. Okay, that's all cleaned out. Go off to the foot pegs, 2 bolts there. We're going to undo the exhaust and these 2 bolts. Okay, now we're going to take these mounting bolts off and pull the subframe. We also got to pull the reservoir, so we'll undo that bolt. Pop this out of the way. Pull these 2 and pull these 2. Okay, we're going to go after the left foot peg with the gear shift. So we'll pull these 2 bolts and then pull that bolt. You got to take that bolt all the way out, and then this slides off. We're going to pull these 2 bolts and pulls the kickstand off. Okay, now we're going to pull the exhaust. Got a bolt that holds the muffler on. We'll pull that off. And then looks like the one holding the header on is gone. And then just pull the header bolts. Pretty easy. Then the header pops off. Alright. So next, we'll take the rear brake hose off. Take that bolt out. And then take these 2 bolts out. And then the right foot peg will come off. Next, we're going to pull this rear fender. So we've got bolt there, bolt there, there, and then looks like there's one on the inside. So we need to pull the rear wheel, and then we need to pull the chain. So we'll cut the chain off. Here's the master link. Pull the chain. Pull the rear nut, and then we will slide the axle out. Okay, we'll pull the caliper before we pull the wheel. So we'll pull this bolt and these 2 bolts here, and then the caliper pops off. Okay, we're at the point where we're going to pull the engine. What I'm going to do, so you've got top mounts taken off already. We're going to pull this one. There's one in there. There's one down here. I'm going to pull all these bolts. Then I'm going to set the whole bike down, the frame and all. And then when the engine's on the ground, I will pull the frame off of the engine. Okay, now got the engine out. Frame, swing arm on the ground. I'm going to take the neck off. There's little tabs in here that you have to bend. There's one right here. Bend it down, and then this spins off, and then your yoke comes out, or steering stem. Okay, now I'm going to go for the rear shock. and the linkage. So you got one bolt here, one bolt here, one bolt here, one bolt here. Then the shock comes out the bottom. All right, we're getting close. Pull this nut off and slide the swing arm pin out. Your swing arm's out. All right, swing arm's out, frame's stripped. Now I'm going to sell the brake rotor. So I'm going to pull the 4 bolts that hold the brake rotor on, but slide the axle out. Sometimes you got to use heat. If these won't come out, use heat to break the Loctite. Okay, there's the rear wheel with the rotor off, and I pulled the tire off. Start. We got the front wheel to do. So, same thing. Take all your rotor bolts off, pull your rotors. These ones are a little loose. Pull your rotors off, and then break your bead and spin your tire off. Well, that's front wheel's done, rear wheel's done. Bike is tore down. Engine sitting there. All these parts. Well, thanks for watching me tear down the engine, or excuse me, tear down the whole bike. That's how I do it. Like and subscribe if you like the content, and I'll keep making more.